Hello everyone, it's Yvonne here to do the reading for the lovely sign of Taurus. Taurus, thank you for joining me today. As usual, I will give a little bit of a blurb around your sign. If you identify as a Taurus, it's usually your sun sign. So if somebody says, what sign are you? You say, I'm a Taurus, that's generally your sun sign. So please remember that there are lots of other signs in your chart. So sometimes people say the so-and-so reading I'm an Aquarius, but the Aquarius readings never resonate with me. And that might be because you would more align with your moon sign, your rising, whatever you're trying to find out or seek information on, maybe under one of the other signs you were born with. So what I say to people is go and do a natal chart or a birth chart. You just Google those things. And Cafe Astrology, for example, do offer a free birth chart. So if you put in the details of your birth and where you were born, it will give you sort of where all the planets were when you were born. Now, sometimes people will say to me, but I don't know what time I was born. You can still do a birth chart without your time. The time will tell you your rising or your ascendant. So without the time, it's harder to find that. You can, if you can get a rough idea and just have a feel out of the signs that come up in that time. But on your ascendant, the planets change quite frequently, every couple of hours. So if you were born just after midnight, you may be, a Pisces, but if you were born 2 hours after midnight, you may be a Scorpio. So it does change quite rapidly. You can have that looked at. So if you can find a really good astrologer, they can work out your ascendant or rising for you by using your timelines in your chart. So it's really interesting. I feel that you learn a lot about yourself by having a look at these things. Every planet represents a different aspect, and where it falls in your signs changes that aspect. So for example, if you have Scorpio in your Venus, then that would mean that you love as a Scorpio would love. So it changes that Venus energy, which is, of course, the planet of love. So it's good fun. Go and have a look it up. You might find some things, that you thought about yourself were really unusual come up in there. Sometimes it can say certain things and you think, oh, I always knew that about myself, but I didn't realize that was something, a lot of other people experience. So good fun. All right, Taurus. Now, before we go any further, first of all, for those of you who have subscribed to me, thank you so much for following and supporting me. For some of you, I know that's been right from the beginning, which I think is 5 years now since I got on YouTube. And if you're a new person and you've just found me, welcome and thank you for joining me. Okay, so the only other things I want to mention, obviously watch out for scammers. Please be aware that they will ride on the back of other readers. They do try to encourage you to use their services, but the fact that they're doing that doesn't really say much for their services because they would have their own sites if it did. So I find that they most often target people who put up sad comments. So if you put up a comment like, I can't move on from this person, they will jump on you big time because you're vulnerable, you want a quick out, and often they will offer that. So please be careful. Remember, I don't chase you or solicit you for readings. It's not what I do. If you do want a reading with me, you can contact me through my email address. There is only one email address, the Aussie Goddess, all one word, @gmail.com. And it's spelt straight out. There is no replacement of words. There is no numbers. It's just straight out, the Aussie Goddess @gmail. Also, I've started up a membership now on my channel. So if you're interested in learning the tarot, you will need to join as a deluxe member. And I have been slowly going through the major arcana. And we will move into the minor arcana probably next week. And then we'll start to really get down and deep with stuff. But I'll do some of that justice card jumping out, the card of Libra. I'll start doing those mostly in the live sessions, I think, so I can work with you on that. All right, let's see where we're going. Now, we're using the Celestial Tarot for your reading here. I do like this tarot because it does have all the planets above the card. So what planet is represented by each card. All right, Taurus. If you're dealing with a Gemini, there was strong Gemini energy in the What's Cracking reading today. So if you do want to go and have a look at that, do. We do have the Devil card coming straight out. And as you can see, it's sign of Capricorn. The Devil is for me a card that represents a myriad of things. It's not so specific. It can represent somebody who's very narcissistic. It can represent somebody who's addicted to something. It can be obviously represent a Capricorn, but it has a lot of in between. So really what for me it represents is someone who's leading with ego. Now we all need our egos. We can't do without them. So when someone says we need to get rid of the ego, they mean that part of your ego that is overinflated. Because we need an ego. We need an ego to, you know, stop us moving in the wrong direction, work as our conscience, that type of thing. If we didn't have an ego, we'd be walking out in front of buses thinking we never die, which of course is just ridiculous. But so when I see the Devil, it often represents to me either you or somebody else that you're dealing with is maybe working more from the ego than from the self. And it's sort of a little bit, whenever I do that, sort of goes into that Freudian thing for me, where we have an innate nature, but we don't always use it because we might be ashamed or not feel comfortable with who we actually are. We don't always want people to see who we are. And it takes a lot of work to get to a point where you are quite honestly who you are when you are. And I remember, you know, when people used to say to me about honesty, I used to say, but I am being honest. I always am honest. But it wasn't about honesty. It was about me being true to me. And I tended to be not really a fence sitter, but definitely a people pleaser. And I definitely was very malleable in people's hands. So years of doing that can make you quite angry and quite resentful. So I feel here that there is something perhaps you're leading with, or you're dealing with somebody who may be a bit more of a people pleaser. There's always a manipulation in that, even if it's just to make you feel better because you don't have to deal with conflict. Possibly Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio here. I do feel that perhaps this person is, and we have the Queen of Swords, interestingly enough, Gemini, Libra. Gemini came out a lot in the What's Cracking reading, and I can see Gemini all around me this morning. So I feel like for somebody out there, I need to talk to Gemini. There's a truth being shown. Okay, if this is you, maybe you are starting to see the truth of something. It may be that you've been dating someone and you've been really taken in by who they are, but maybe you're about to see something that's going to make you question who that person is. It could be that you have been giving and giving and giving and finally realizing that perhaps you're not getting anything back from the other person. Maybe you're too busy pleasing them rather than understanding how to please yourself. It's a really complex thing, that people pleasing. And when I say people pleasing, I think people run off with things. It's a bit like victim mentality, where we have an idea of what it is, but we really don't know. So if we're people pleasing, very often we do sit on the fence. I can remember many times when I started looking back and I was like, wow, you know, people would come in and say, you know, what do you want to do? And I'd say, I don't mind. And they said, well, I'd like to go to the pictures. And I think, I really don't want to go to the pictures. Oh, sure, no worries, I'll go to the pictures. Or, you know, those people who knock on the door and say, I need this. Can you help me with this? Can you loan me this? And I would just say yes, even when I didn't have it myself, or it really was important to me not to give that away. Until people get really, I always think that they can do so much and get away with it, and then they start to become even more treacherous. So they come in and borrow $1 and give you $1 back, and then they borrow $5, give you $5 back, and then they get 20 and they give you the 20 back, and then they land on your doorstep and ask for 500. You never see that again. So there's a real manipulation, a real sort of, you're open for manipulation basically. So it's really hard sometimes for us to say no, and a lesson I had to learn very, very strongly to really put my life in a new direction. Okay, so we have the 8 of Pentacles coming through with the Princess of Wands, the 6 of Pentacles, and the 5 of Cups. Oh dear. I feel like you've, like, you've invested a lot of time and energy in a person. Really, you have. You've been giving to a relationship very, very strongly. And I feel like here with this Five of Cups, perhaps you're starting to feel that this person is not giving back. I think at first perhaps they did. Maybe that's where the energy's coming from. Maybe they were very good to start with, but maybe the more you've put in, the less they've given. That is enough to send a relationship toxic. So if you're doing all the work and the other person's not doing anything, they will get bored with you. They will get sick of you. They'll either become very manipulative and abusive, or they will call it quits because you're no longer a challenge for them. So if you're in this situation where you're thinking, oh my goodness, I feel like I do everything in this relationship. I'm always, booking the restaurant, picking the place to go, putting the money in, paying for things. I'm the one who always drives my car. Like if you're getting to that point where it's really already very obvious, then you may have already gone to a point where you need to step up and say this isn't good enough anymore. Hopefully you're getting this reading when you've noticed a few things and now you can stand up for yourself. So all it takes is for you to say, no, I don't want to do that. I'd really like to do this, and see how your person goes. If they make excuses not to do what you want to do, then they're controlling. That's it. So a good partner doesn't have to necessarily do everything you want to do all of the time, but being a supportive partner means that sometimes you make the decisions and you take the lead. And it feels to me like there's a conversation taking place here. We do have temperance. See, that's what you're after. That sort of energy of balance. I think with the Seven of Pentacles, it's very possible that you've already thought about leaving with that Two of Wands. So whatever this situation is, you've already considered, do I want to become single? Do I want to, go my own way? I've invested a lot in this. I could probably do this by myself. But you may be feeling very depleted because it feels to me like you've put in a lot of energy and you're out of balance now. So you may be starting to question. Nine of Wands, there you go. So you've gone around in circles with this. So when we see the Nine of Wands, we know that you've tried to bring that to the 10. So this energy would be, I'm really sick of this. I'm really done. I want to move on. And then that person senses that and they do one small thing and you question yourself. I feel like for some of you, you may be dealing with someone who is quite controlling or even on the borderline of being sort of having some narcissistic traits. Okay, we have the Hierophant here. You may already be in a commitment with them, but the Hierophant does represent Taurus. And I do have the Six of Cups here. Really interesting energy. I'm just going to pull some cards out. So we have the Devil card coming through with the Queen of Cups. So we have water sign energy, air sign energy. So Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio. And we do have Taurus energy coming through. But I feel like this Ace of Swords, like some sort of truth is going to, it could be that other people have told you. I remember, being in a friendship group and actually it didn't really happen to me at all, which surprises me when I look back. But I know one of the other girls in the group had a very, very dominant, overbearing husband. And I remember, some of the girls saying to her, don't you realize how much he controls you? He's quite cruel to you, this type of thing. And she just couldn't even see it. Well, she may have been able to see it. She wasn't going to take the feedback on it, though. And what you find often with that is the other person walks away and then the person's become so dependent on them and so abused in their own way that they don't feel like they can go on without them. And some people will say to me, like, he treated me really badly, but I really want to have him back. And that's because you've become so dependent and you've forgotten who you are. Okay, so I have the Six of Cups here. That's really what I'm going to clarify. So I have the Eight of Cups here. So there's definitely an energy with the Strength card. All right, if this is you I'm talking to, King of Wands as well. If it's you I'm talking to here, I really feel that it might be good for you to start Googling or looking up stuff to help you to heal. So if you find that you're in a situation where you are sort of struggling to get somebody to listen to you or understand where you're coming from, then strengthen yourself. It's not about keep supporting them and holding them up and giving them everything because they may love you if you do that. It doesn't work that way. And I feel like here that you need to take the lead for yourself. So this may not be creating conflict. Maybe you're conflict averse. Maybe you don't want to front this person up, and that's okay. Build yourself up. Really understand why that person is like they are. Ask the questions. Question them. They don't like being asked. If you're dealing with someone who's really that controlling, then maybe it's time to find some gentle way of saying it's just not what I want, I'm sorry, and just let them go on their own. There's a good chance that if you do that and you start pushing against that flow, that they will want to move on. So as I see it, maybe that's just the best thing that you could do, because quite possibly here. Now, keep in mind, actually, Taurus, which I didn't mention at the beginning, this isn't always romantic. This can be a family member or a friend who's absolutely abusing that relationship you have with them. And I know that sometimes we keep persevering, we keep putting more energy in, we keep loving people more because somehow or another we believe that by doing that we're going to reinforce the relationship. Let me tell you, it does not work. It actually makes things worse. You might feel better because you're not fighting and arguing, but you're just going to get more and more resentful and angry that this person is treating you this way. And the more you stay in that relationship, the more difficult it is to exit. All right, pretty heavy reading, Taurus, but thank you for joining me.